compassionate logic.
New ideas and efficient tools for a happier, more connected life.
Many people talk about that they get stuck in, they can't go to sleep at night because the brain becomes a spin cycle and the thoughts keep churning and churning and churning. And what you're talking about, doing something else, that something else usually is something that gets your brain to shut up completely. Like some physical activity or some, conversation or something that helps you get in touch with yourself here and out of here. The longest trip in the world is getting out of your head and getting into your heart. And the shortest trip in the world is going the other way. One of the other things that we found really impacts our personal stress in our life is resentment. Resentment that we're holding on ourselves, it can go way back. And many of us don't even believe we're carrying resentment on ourselves or somebody else. I remember one time believing, I don't have any resentment for my dad. I left my mom after 26 years of marriage. No, we're good, we're fine, we're getting along. And yet when I chose to look at it and say, is there resentment there? The resentment didn't stop when that happened. The resentment was all the way back to when I was 3. And there's 3 basic ways we carry resentment: against ourselves, against other people, and against life.
Life sucks.
Yep. How many times do you hear that? Life sucks. Life's unfair. Life's always bad. Life's never, it seems like we have an opinion that life never shows up all the time. It's always bad or it's always negative. And we can't take too much love or have too much fun because that means bad things are going to happen. Its own kind of resentment. And one of the fastest ways that we found to lay down resentment is Hoponopono. I would highly recommend you get the book and read it, but quite simply, it's looking at the person, looking at the situation or ourselves, and quite simply saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. It can have an effect in just a few times repeating that.
Even if, surprisingly, having tried it when I was much more cynical and shut down and resistive, I would try it even believing it was garbage, and it still had an effect, even in spite of that. We started off talking about coping mechanisms, both our coping mechanisms and other ones that don't work.
And then there's the judgmental language that happens in our society.
The shoulds, the have-tos, the musts.
Always, never.
And their negative effects. Talk about the equation for suffering, where you project that reality should be somewhere other than where it is, and that keeping you from responding and creating more suffering.
We talked about the physical stress on your body, of the anxiety that you're creating in your own mind, and how we might be addicted to it.
We talked about this lion-sized hole, where your brain pretty much has a space for large problems, and if it doesn't have them, it will manufacture them.
And how it's really not the outside world or other people that are causing our stress. They're saying and doing the things that they say and do. Things are happening in the world that's happening. It's not their fault that you're experiencing or that I'm experiencing stress. It's what my mind is doing with everything that's being said and done or what I'm witnessing that's creating my stress. Then you have our ego protection mechanism that wants to keep us safe. And it worked pretty good a million years ago to keep us out from getting eaten by a large furry animal or eating the wrong berries. But when we added all the thinking with the prefrontal cortex, then it started spinning all kinds of yarns that are just designed for stress, and it's not really true.
And we talked about how its general structure, how it operates, is it wants to control your future to make it safe by making the present look just like the past. Even if the past is negative, it prefers familiar and bad over unfamiliar and unknown.
And we talked about how people can bond negatively and how that doesn't help.
Yes. We ran through a couple ideas for writing exercises. If you have time to sit down and reflect, where you can write out what actually are the things that are creating stress. What's the fuel for those negative thoughts that are keeping you up at night or stressing out or making you want to pick up a cigarette or have an affair or whatever it is.
And we also did a writing exercise where you would actually pick an event and find out like what your mind was saying about it by investigating the feelings in your body And then being able to tell the truth, choose and visualize how to move forward so that you can actually change the response altogether to that type of an event again.
Yeah, more in-depth approach on something that's safer. It's in the past that you can use a time machine to go back and re-experience and reevaluate in slow motion, like after a sports team has finished a game, they sit down and analyze with a coach from some outside people who watch and said, this worked, this didn't, this isn't serving you.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing, but just doing it with our experiences. I had that fight with this important person in my life, and afterwards I can go back and go, well, actually I was really responding because they were acting like my mom, and to actually get some insight on why you were doing what you were doing, much less why they were doing what they were doing.
We don't get to change the other person's behavior, but we do get to change how we respond to it.
We had a discussion about buttons or wounds, whichever analogy works better for you, where all of us come out of childhood into adulthood with various wounds, intentional or unintentional, and most of us protect our wounds rather than healing them.
Mm-hmm.
Or we have our buttons, and most of us try and fend people off,
keep them away,
keep people from touching our buttons rather than removing the buttons, either because we don't know how to, or it's too scary or too much work. But it is exhausting keeping people away to protect yourself, and then you're keeping people away
when you actually would like to be held by that person.
Thank you for watching our video.
If you like the video, please subscribe.
Please like.
Please leave a comment below. Thank you so much.